And good afternoon, I'm Whit Johnson in New York. We're coming back on the air because the judge has just sentenced Sean Diddy Combs to 4 years in prison.
He was once the face of success, a music mogul, entrepreneur, and cultural icon who turned street hustle into empire gold. Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a rapper or producer, he was the industry itself. The lavish parties, the diamond watches, the mansions filled with celebrities, it all painted a picture of a man who had conquered fame. For more than 3 decades, Diddy's name carried weight. He wasn't simply part of hip-hop's history, he helped define it. As the founder of Bad Boy Records, he discovered and mentored legends like the Notorious B.I.G. His intuition for talent was unmatched, his business ventures sprawling. From Sean John Fashion to Revolt TV, from Cîroc Vodka to his music catalog, every endeavor seemed destined for success. But behind the flashbulbs and champagne was a darkness few dared to acknowledge. Whispers circulated, rumors that spoke of control, fear, and abuse. At first, they were dismissed as tabloid fodder. Diddy's empire was untouchable. His influence insulated him from scrutiny. But as time passed, a pattern emerged, one that could no longer be ignored. The first major crack in his carefully constructed image came when Cassie Ventura, the singer he had discovered and mentored, stepped forward. Publicly, she was the young star under Diddy's wing. Privately, she revealed a story of years of abuse, physical, emotional, and psychological. The image of mentorship melted away, exposing control and humiliation lurking beneath the surface. Her lawsuit shocked fans and the industry alike. For many, it seemed that history was repeating itself. Silence would be bought, and the story would disappear. Yet this time, the world refused to look away. Security footage surfaced, grainy yet damning, showing Diddy physically assaulting Cassie in a hotel hallway. For the first time, the rumors became undeniable evidence. The man once synonymous with glamour, charisma, and power was now labeled as something darker: abuser, predator, and manipulator. As the fallout unfolded, others found the courage to speak. Former assistants, bodyguards, and insiders began to reveal what had long been whispered behind closed doors: drug-fueled parties, coercion, and the relentless exertion of power over those around him. They described a world where wealth and influence weren't tools for creation, but weapons to intimidate and control. Federal authorities took notice. Diddy's Los Angeles and Miami homes were raided. Helicopters hovered. Agents seized computers, hard drives, and evidence boxes. The mogul who had once walked Hollywood like royalty now faced the bright glare of the law. The trial was as high profile as it was tense. The courtroom became a theater of accountability, with reporters, former associates, and those who had benefited from his empire watching intently. The prosecution painted a portrait of systemic abuse, detailing years of manipulation and exploitation, connecting Diddy's wealth and power to the alleged crimes. Financial records, messages, and witness testimony were laid bare. Yet despite the weight of evidence, the law is precise. The most severe charges, including racketeering conspiracy under RICO and sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, required proof of a formal criminal enterprise. The defense, led by a team of elite attorneys, meticulously dismantled the prosecution's narrative. They argued that alleged acts were personal, consensual, and outside the realm of an organized criminal enterprise. The jury struggled with the technical definition of enterprise and pattern. Without this connection, the RICO charges could not stick. The courtroom tension gave way to the verdict. Diddy was acquitted of the most serious charges, but he was convicted of 2 counts under the Mann Act: transportation to engage in prostitution. The evidence was logistical: flights, payments, and movements of individuals across state lines. The legal proof was straightforward, unambiguous, and undeniable. The sentence, 50 months in federal prison, was shorter than prosecutors had sought, but it carried a moral weight that resonated beyond the bars. Judge Arun Subramanian, in delivering the sentence, did not mince words. "You abused these women." This acknowledgement of systemic harm, even in the face of a technical legal defeat, ensured that Diddy could not walk away unscathed. The conviction and sentence, however, were only part of the story. The public and financial fallout would prove far more devastating. Partnerships collapsed. Diageo, the British spirits company, took full ownership of Cîroc and De Leon, cutting Diddy out of lucrative deals. Revolt TV, once his media stronghold, saw him step away entirely. Sean John, the brand that once defined his cultural impact, disappeared from major retailers. Civil suits began to mount. Cassie Ventura, other women who came forward, and even former employees initiated legal action. Unlike criminal cases, civil proceedings operate on a lower burden of proof. The potential for massive financial judgments loomed over Diddy's empire, threatening to erode the wealth he had spent decades building. Forbes estimated his net worth had already plummeted from $740 million to $400 million. And this was just the beginning. The unraveling of Sean Diddy Combs' empire was swift and brutal. What had taken decades to build, the music, the fashion lines, the media outlets, the partnerships, began to crumble almost overnight. The world watched as the man once untouchable, whose name had defined an era of hip-hop and entrepreneurship, faced a new reality: accountability without escape. Diageo's acquisition of Cîroc and De Leon was more than a financial blow. It signaled the end of one of Diddy's most lucrative ventures, a symbol of his influence that had extended far beyond music. Revolt TV, his platform to shape culture, was lost. Sean John, the fashion brand that had carried his identity into homes and closets worldwide, vanished from shelves. Hollywood and the corporate world were no longer willing to shield him. Reputation, once flexible under his influence, became rigid and unforgiving. Civil litigation compounded the pressure. Victims, emboldened by Cassie Ventura's courage, filed claims that threatened the very core of his wealth. Unlike the criminal trial, civil cases only required a preponderance of evidence, a much lower legal standard. Here, the accumulation of testimony, leaked messages, and documentation became a weapon against the mogul. Legal analysts predicted the damages could rival, if not exceed, the financial empire he had spent decades creating. The public fallout was equally unrelenting. Social media amplified outrage, forcing brands and collaborators to distance themselves. The silence of Hollywood's elite, those who had once celebrated Diddy's success, was deafening. Award shows and media platforms scrubbed tributes. Music streams and collaborations were re-evaluated. And cultural icons who had once embraced him now spoke cautiously, aware of the implications. Yet amid this destruction, there was clarity. The story of Sean Combs' fall was not simply about one man losing wealth or status. It was about systemic accountability. The same structures that had allowed him to rise, wealth, fame, influence, could no longer guarantee immunity. Cassie Ventura and the other survivors proved that courage and truth could break through even the most fortified empires. Their voices forced society, the courts, and the media to confront what had been ignored for too long. Diddy's journey from untouchable mogul to convicted felon illustrates the duality of justice in America. Legally, he avoided the harshest penalties because the RICO and sex trafficking charges could not be definitively proven. Morally, however, the courts acknowledged the harm he caused, and society recognized the destruction of his public image and financial standing as a form of reckoning. This story extends beyond the man himself. It is a cautionary tale for an industry that often prioritizes fame over ethics, influence over integrity. It asks difficult questions. How many others like Diddy remain unchecked? How many empires thrive on silence, fear, and manipulation? And perhaps most importantly, how many people are waiting for their courage to be heard, just as Cassie Ventura's was? The lesson is clear. Power may shield the guilty for a time, but it cannot erase the truth. The structures built to protect fame and fortune are not infallible. Eventually, accountability finds its way through, leaving a permanent mark on those who once believed themselves untouchable. Sean Combs' story, from the golden age of hip-hop to the shadows of courtroom halls, is more than a fall from grace. It is a mirror held up to Hollywood, a reminder that no matter the wealth, influence, or celebrity, justice and truth endures. The survivors' voices, their bravery, and their insistence on being heard reshaped a narrative long dominated by silence and fear. In the end, the lights may still shine bright on Hollywood, but the real illumination comes from the voices that refuse to be silenced. Sean "Diddy" Combs' empire may have crumbled, but the power of accountability and courage remains. A lesson for the industry, for fans, and for everyone who believed in the illusion of untouchable fame. This is not just a story about one man. It is a story about a culture, a system, and the unstoppable force of truth. The era of silent complicity is over, and in its place rises a new standard. No celebrity, no matter how powerful, can escape the consequences of their actions. If this story resonates, remember to like, share, and subscribe. At The Scandal Room, we uncover the real stories behind Hollywood's brightest lights and darkest secrets, because the truth always finds a way to the surface.